I was reluctant to read these at first when I picked them up at a garage sale. I was like, I don't know, man. I'd never heard a whole lot about Conan before. Like, I knew the Schwarzenegger movie, but I tell you what, some of the Conan comics that we've gone over, I'm like, dang, I wish that I would have picked this up sooner. So, of course, we had to go over the Conan Saga issue 47. From what I understand, these are reprints from the original Conan run back in the day. And guys, as we get into this, these covers can almost match, or should I say, rival the covers of Heavy Metal magazine. These are absolutely beautiful pieces. And then you open it up, and these are kind of like the Marvel Comics Presents, where they take, I believe it's 2 issues and then merge them together. So Tom DeFalco was the editor-in-chief at the time. Craig Anderson was the editor. The Pull of the Black One, Conan fights for his life on an island that looks like paradise, by Roy Thomas, John Buscema, and Sonny Trinidad. We have The Curse of the Monolith, which is Roy Thomas, Gene Colan, and Pablo Marcos. And I believe the print date, this was February 1991. Now, I want you to keep this in mind, because at this point, we had Todd McFarlane, we had Rob Liefeld. But look at this artwork, my guys. John Buscema. Holy crap. This is the Pull of the Black One. Sancha, once of Coreva, stretches her supple limbs, luxurious on the ermine-fringed silk spread on the Karak's poop deck. That the crew of the ship watches her with burning interest from the waist and forecastle, she is lazily aware. Just as she is also aware that her short silk kirtle veils few of her voluptuous contours from their eager eyes. Wherefore she smiles insolently and prepares to snatch a few more winks before the dawning sun should dazzle her eyes. This was 1991. Granted, these are reprints from the 70s, but still these books were going strong and people were demanding reprints. Now, I'm going to kind of go a little bit on a tangent, so bear with me. But there was a comment one of our community members said where they basically said that I explode too easily when I go over modern comics. And, I said, I have an explosive personality. What can I say? But let me show you why. These were in demand reprints from 1991 based on like 70s and 80s comics. Now, we just recently went over X-Men 97 issue 1. This comic, in essence, has a leg up from this because we have all the new digital art. We have new ways that we can express artwork. We have so many different ways that people back in the day didn't. However, now with that said, let's look at the cover. Something that you would see in Heavy Metal magazine. The inks, all traditionally done, coloring, the paint. And this is art that stands the test of time. And even these, done in black and white. The detail, traditional ink work. The way Conan comes out of the water. The ship on the 7 seas. I just kind of want to set the stage as we go back and we look at the human form, anatomy. This is what was meant back in the day when it would say, go into your local comic shop and make mine, and tell them, make mine Marvel, meaning make your pull list Marvel Comics. Now, let's go into 2025. And when I went over this book, I even said back in 1992 when the Adventures came out, it was 91, 92, around there. I said that the artists did not need to go as hard as they did on that series. You can still see the traditional comic work being done, like you'd see here. But look at this bland, boring backgrounds, boxy art. Nothing of interest to look at. And that's what I really kind of cracked down on this book about, was just the generic colors, no dynamicness about this. And that's why I got a little heated when we went over this book, because it was just so boring and flat. The story was great, don't get me wrong. But the artwork, it looks so stock is the word that I could think of. I mean, look at Logan. It looks like he's sniffing a fart instead of looking at how, old pieces of art, just like how a lot of these old school artists did. They used to look at history books and whatnot to kind of get an idea. Like when they were doing, I believe it was The Tomb of Dracula. I can't remember the actor's name. I think it was Jack Palance. The Marvel artist said that he had to get Polaroids from, I believe he had to take them from the TV in order to have reference. Nowadays, where you can just say, Google person kissing character, person sniffing. There's nothing wrong with using a reference, but I'm just saying, as the future comes forward, you would think that they would want to keep this part of our history alive. And there are some TikTokers out there that are doing it, but I'm not seeing it in the big two and even in Image anymore. Because back in the day, Image was really tearing it up in terms of quality. It's still here and there, but not back in the day. I mean, if you go back and you look at any comics from the 70s till about the early 2000s, artwork for the most part was always spot on, beautiful, like this, quality. This, to me, is not quality, guys. The writing, sure. The book, the artwork, not so much. But I just wanted to kind of point that out as we go further into, at that instance, a sound reaches her ears. A sound unlike the creaking of timbers, thrum of courage, and lap of waves, as she finds her craze on the rail. Who are you? Are you a merman that you rose up out of the sea? Before the newcomer can reply, if he means to, who the devil are you, sirrah? I said, I heard you. I am Conan. And how did you get aboard my ship? I swam. Swam? Do you jest with me? We are far beyond the sight of land. Whence do you come? I come from the islands. So essentially, Conan is coming after this guy because he slaughtered her village and kind of made her his slave, and Conan's kind of here to just shake things up. Just at dawn, I saw your topsails and left the miserable tub to sink while I made better speed in the water. These waters are full of sharks. So, bleh, why should I burden myself with every nameless vagabond the sea casts up? A ship can always use another good sailor. And so, he acts meek for the most part as he enters with the crew. However, they go to haze him. As for Conan, he knows that he had attacked the captain outright. The whole crew would have been at his throat. But here, Baraka, eh? That's where they raise dogs for men. Like this. The Barakan's movement is too quick for the eye to follow. His sludge-like fist crunches with a terrible impact against his tormentor's jaw. And the Zagarian catapults through the air to fall in a crumpled heap by the rail. The baiting is over as suddenly as it begun. By Mitra, his neck's broken. You freebooters are a weak-boned race. On the Barakas, we take no account of such taps as that. Will you play at sword strokes now? Any of you? No. Then all's well and we're friends, eh? Aye, friends! And so Conan basically outdrinks them, outgambles them, outworks them. And she notices, while Sancha looks more and more at the black-maned giant who never speaks to her, though the candor of his gaze cannot be mistaken. Now, eventually they land on this island, and there's supposed to be jewels and whatnot. This is chapter 2, the scream on the beach. And look at this, guys. Going back to how we were just looking at those bland backgrounds of X-Men 97, John Buscema did not need to go that hard in a comic back in the 70s, 80s. They did it because they were good at their craft. They did it because it was a cutthroat industry. They had to be the best of the best. And that's why, to this day, 21st century John Buscema is still revered long after his death. And that's why we still celebrate his art and these stories by individuals such as Roy Thomas. He knew how to write Conan. He knew how to make a story full of sex appeal, action, drama, horror. Now, Sancha realizes that a lot of the men are screaming. He says her curiosity piques. Sancha waits for either of them to respond, but they do not. Many of the seamen on the shore are willing to lie down and sleep. Sancha knows well the penalty for disobeying her merciless master, a whipping or worse. But then again, it might be worth it. And then the battle, the dance of death. And Conan finally calls on the man. But when you think all is well, we come across this city. And during this time period, I loved how everything had that dystopian 70s. This was, if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me down in the comments. But before Star Wars, you think back to like Logan's Run and shows like that, Metropolis. Everything kind of had this dystopian, very sterile or Amazonian kind of ruin feel. And you see it here with these pillars. He halts suddenly at the sight of green, shining walls and towers. These had merged so perfectly with the verdant landscape, as they have been invisible, even so to his keen sight, till he had reached this point. All this happened before Sancha screamed at what she saw on the white sandy beach. And now, wordless, Conan takes a deep breath, fingers his sword, and goes forward. Bitten by the worm of curiosity, he sees no one as he approaches a tall archway in the curving wall. Nor was there a true door. And then we see these horrific beings. We don't know what they are. For squatting about a dark green pool in the midst of the court are tall, gaunt, black-skinned creatures made like men, though the last of them tower head and shoulders above even Conan. Even at this distance, the Cimmerian can sense the basic diabolism of their features, and in their midst, cringing, stands a youth Conan recognizes as the youngest sailor aboard the wastrel. He then was the captive Conan had seen born through the trees. And then it kills me because this book ends on a cliffhanger with Sancha and Conan. We don't know what's going to happen. And I was like, damn, I want more. And then we get this separation page, guys. Look at this. Holy crap. That's work that you want to put on a wall and see in a gallery. We come now to The Curse of the Monolith, adapted from the story by L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter, featuring the hero created by Robert E. Howard. And I love this opening page, guys. This cold, desolate valley. The sheer cliffs of dark stone close about Conan the Cimmerian like the sides of a trap. He likes not their looming, jagged peaks, or the stars that glitter down like the eyes of spiders, or the chill, uneasy winds that whistles across the stony heights and prowls about the campfire. Yet as he stands posed between y'all cliffs on one side, and on the other side colossal redwoods, which were old when Atlantis sank 8,000 years ago, he cannot know what this is, the night he will face the curse of the monolith. That's a masterclass in how you mix visual storytelling and traditional narrative storytelling together, guys. You open on a breathtaking establishing shot. And not just writing a comic in the hopes that you'll eventually get a Netflix deal. You write it because you love your craft and you want to make a great product that people will enjoy. Conan essentially was duped into helping these kings. And as you go to come back, there is one character, which I cannot remember his name, then with an unexpectedness which makes the giant Cimmerian reach for his tumwar. Do I disturb the profound meditations of the nobly born commander? Perhaps the princely captain is unable to sleep. No, Duke Fang, but it's not safe to walk up so quietly on a soldier like that. Ah, so that is the cause of your unease. You see, this person is so fortunate as to possess a sovereign remedy for sleepiness, which Conan begins to growl a contemptuous curse, then remembers his ambassadorial duties. I thank you, Duke, but it's something about this accursed place. Some uncanny premonition keeps me awakeful, when after a long day's ride I should be as sound asleep as the others. I think I understand the misgivings of the excellent commander. So this Duke Fang lures Conan for hopes of treasures and gold. And again, I love this work, guys. It just feels so desolate. Like, as the words echo what the artwork is showing, the night growing darker, the winds colder, all the eerie premonitions of danger which Conan felt on first entering the valley have returned in full force as he walks close behind the diminutive Kitan. And look at how tiny they make our characters against this giant chasm, showing the danger. Now, without going too much into it, the monolith happens. And it takes everything Conan can to try and escape it. And I love this Dutch angle. Crumbs, devil. Staggering and cursing, Conan is nonetheless like a small fish being reeled in by some gargantuan fisherman to be suddenly slammed against the great monolith with bone-crushing force. His back is pinned to the shaft now, likewise his arms adorned with metal bands, and the scabbard sword at his waist. And it is here that we see what dwells upon the monolith. This looks like something you'd see like on a Death Clock or a Cannibal Corpse album. For the rising moon shines on and through an amorphous thing, which squats obscenely on the summit of the column. It is like a huge lump of quivering, semi-translucent jelly, and it lives. How is Conan going to escape this, guys? This one actually kept me on the edge of my seat. Everything about this book, honestly, kept me on my seat. The artwork, just the dreadfulness of the villains, the heroic acts, and not so heroic acts of Conan the Barbarian. And even in these little teasers, Conan vowed that tomorrow he would find a new P.O. box that was easier to get to. And this is one thing I will say, I miss the comment section. Like, I know we have social media today, but something about having it in the comic in and of itself, I feel, is like scrolls of old age, where these people will always be a part of this comic history, as where tweets and Reddits and stuff like that will always be deleted. So even though this was a look at a time capsule, guys, this was back when we were young, before we became old farts. This is what we ran to our comic shops and said, make my Marvel, because of writers like Roy Thomas, Stan Lee, Chris Claremont, Louise Simonson, all these amazing artists and writers that have defined our modern mythos and entertainment. So if you've enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever you get your action figures and comics, and grab this series. You will not be disappointed. And if you've enjoyed this review, really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you don't mind hitting that fancy little Cimmerian bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and I love talking with y'all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments or the socials, which I'll make sure the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.